What's happening, everybody? We are running out of these rapidly. In fact, this might be the last time, well, it is the last time, at least for this year, I get to do one of these cottage to cottage podcasts. One of these deck to deck, patio to patio, whatever you want to call it. Our man Steve Bunda alongside on this edition of the Tall Can Audio Podcast. And look, everything changes after Labor Day. We all know what that looks like. It's back to work. It's back to school. All kinds of things. But our man Bunda is amongst a very small group of people that I call my enablers. It's Michaela Schreider from She's Got Game on the TSN radio network. It is Kevin Mickey from Sportsnet 590, The Fan down in Toronto. And of course, Steve Bunda from 580 CFRA, who allow me to do the slack-ass summer thing. And this is the last week for it. And often enough, over the years, it's been Bunda having to do it from back in the city while I'm up at the cottage. This year has been new. It's been novel. It's been better. He's at his own cottage as we sit down and do this, like I said, cottage to cottage. Steve Bunda, what's happening, man?
Man, what's going on, Matty? Well, first off, why is it the last cottage to cottage podcast? Like, September could be nice.
Well, you know what? I hope you're able to do that. I will be here, and this will be we'll be doing it in the opposite direction. You might be back at your cottage, and I'll still be here in the city. And I owe you a couple of those, I guess. But I will be back in town till Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I remember last September though was like such a warm September, and like spending a little bit more time at the cottage last September, and I love when you can have that a little bit of extra summer, and everything is a little bit quieter around the lakes, and I'm sure over by your place too, come September. But it's always fun to do one of these, Matty, and I'm glad we got to do not one, but at least two of them this summer. So I'm always down to help you out, and I'm always down to come on and have some fun and talk about pints and talk about sports and whatever else we get into.
And that is it, man. There's always stuff to get into, and so appreciate you, appreciate Schreids, appreciate Kevin Mickey.
Schreids.
My enablers is what I've called it. The people who have allowed me to slack ass my way through the summer. So appreciate the three of you guys for sure. I will remind the good listener, if you missed it, we had the voice of the Senators, Dean Brown, on the podcast on Monday morning. Yeah, lots to talk about with him. We got into the three Sens that were invited to USA Hockey's orientation camp. Canada has theirs going on right now. We'll touch on that here today. But we got into that, plus the offseason that the Sens had, and what's reasonable to expect out of the Sens this year. Who's going to take a step forward? What should we be looking at early in training camp and early in the regular season? Appreciate Dean for that. And that comes on the heels of last Thursday's show. Mike Comito, hockey historian, was on to talk about the core four era of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And what the fuck went wrong? What happened? So those
How long
are
was
up
that
now.
podcast? Sounds like it could have been a couple hours.
That was it, man. That guy's got a job to do. He's got a life. I wasn't able to keep him as long as we could have, but yeah. All of that up at tallcanaudio.com or wherever you're hearing us right now. Bunda, what's the pint today? What are we riding with?
All right, I'm going with a special one, Matty. It's a new one. I just saw it in the store, and I just said, you know what? This is kind of cool. Let's give it a shot. But it's a Mike's Hafer lemonade lager. So it's a tall can of Mike's Hard lemonade mixed with Busch Light.
There's a lot going on there, man.
And I'm telling you, man, the can is pretty cool too. Obviously, I'll send you a pic so that way you can post it later if you want or whatever. But yeah, you got to check this bad boy out. I've already had one, and man, oh man, they are legit. So yeah, I think it's really cool to see this, and man, it's nice and smooth. It's kind of like a Radler, but a bit more. So I'm giving that a rip today. So what do you got cooking?
There's something about this, because you've showed up here once or twice before in the early days of the pod with a Busch Light. Like, is that your go-to? If I'm not doing craft today, like Busch is your... Because like if I'm in the U.S., if I'm not doing whatever... Like if I'm here in Canada, it's Molson Canadian is sort of my fallback, like standard beer, macro beer. In the U.S., I'll go to like Miller or even Miller Lite. Sometimes I prefer over the MGD. Is Busch one that you're like a bit of a go-to for you if there's nothing craft on tap?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very easygoing when it comes to beers, but growing up, or I wouldn't say growing up, in my early days of just whatever and being in a small town, it's usually Busch, Blue.
Sure.
Those were always the good ones and
it's interesting.
The cheap go-tos.
Yeah, interesting to hear Busch and Mike's Hard. Like that's a A tag
so
team.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm intrigued by this, man.
The mix is perfect. It's like you can get a very good taste of the lemonade at first, and then it kind of is a nice smoothing lager feel to it at the end, and it's actually like a perfect mix. Have you ever heard of Rockets, where you mix beer with Smirnoff Ice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it once or twice. My friends played this game. I'm sure it wasn't original, but they would hide... and I can't remember now whether it was a Mike's Hard Lemonade or a Smirnoff Ice or something, but like you would put a Smirnoff Ice in somebody else's cooler, and if they reached in and grabbed it, like, what is this? And like, oh fuck, you get a shotgun the whole thing, right? Or you'd wake up with it under your pillow because some fucker put it there. But as far as the rocket, I'm not sure if I've ever had to do that. I probably at some point, but.
It's a really like kind of tasty, unique flavor, and it like I couldn't crush like 10 of these right now, but I can definitely crush. And then like a nice hot afternoon, I just cut my grass all morning here at the cottage. I was just telling you, like, you gave me just enough time to come in, have a drink, have a bite to eat, and just sit there like an old man admiring his lawn, all looking all beautiful. So that's what I've been doing right now.
Okay.
And it's like I said, I've already put a couple of these into me, but I think like it's just a perfect, refreshing kind of like summer daytime drink.
Yeah. So over here, I've been trying to figure out, like, I don't know, what's the right way to wrap this up, because, I don't want to be a bummer to people, but that's what's happening on my end. That's how I'm feeling as I wrap up my time at the cottage, right? So I had this one early. I can't remember if it was with you or not, but in one of the earlier summer sessions from Perth Brewery, the Bonfire Black Lager.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. It's a nice beer, and to me, it's about where I want to be right now. Well, I shouldn't say where I want to be, but where I am right now. And it's a good beer. I like the beer a lot. It's probably my favorite beer from Perth Brewery, although they do have a seasonal stout that let's not go down that road. We don't need to decide today what my favorite Perth Brewery beer is, but those are the two in the... but the Bonfire sort of signifies summer, but it's after dark, like we're wrapping up the day, and that's sort of how I feel right now. I love their Bonfire dark lager. So even though I've had it before already in one of these summer editions of the podcast, I'm going to have it again as we sort of wrap this up. You're right to point out this doesn't have to be the last Cottage podcast for you for the summer.
For you.
It probably is for me. Now we'll talk. Maybe at Thanksgiving. Maybe we.
I was going to say, you never know, man. Like they're just keep that option open. It's not done. It's likely.
It's likely done, but it's not confirmed, right?
Yeah.
As
exactly.
all the hockey insiders, anything can change with a phone call, right? Like
and that's exactly it, Matty. I like that thought.
Look, Bunda, a bunch of different places we can start here today, but I referenced off the top there talking to Dean about the 3 different members of the Ottawa Senators who had been invited to USA Hockey's orientation camp. Of course, Shane Pinto, Brady Tkachuk, and Jake Sanderson. I think most people assumed that Sanderson and Tkachuk not only will be invited to camp, but are basically slam dunks to make the team. I was a little surprised that Shane Pinto was invited to camp. Maybe I shouldn't have been. Certainly a useful player who, if he gets off to a nice start, could find himself with a bottom 6 spot on the roster for Team USA if everything went, the way that I'm sure he hopes it does. Hockey Canada is doing the same thing right now out in Calgary, and there was a long list of guys invited. I think there was 44 men's players that were invited. Before we get to what people like to call the snubs, was there any names that you saw on there that either jumped out at you as far as guys who were invited that you thought, like, that's a really great idea, or I can't believe they bothered to invite that guy, or, just any names on the roster that you saw there that you kind of caught your attention for one reason or another?
Yeah, I'm happy they invited Connor Bedard because I really think that look, everybody talked about this guy. Obviously, he had a down year with Chicago last year, but this guy is still a superstar. I'm not writing him off at all. And look, Chicago's been terrible. So I like him being involved and around these kinds of players and Olympic players. I really hope he makes the team, whether it's an extra or he earns a spot. I really hope he's around the Olympic team because I feel like he is a future Canadian Olympic star. The experience he's going to get from watching these guys and all of the best hockey players in the world, all of the best Canadian players, he needs to be there just to be able to see some of this.
Just to be there.
Yeah, to be there. So I was really happy to see
Celebrini,
couple
very
editions.
Similar, right? Like, I don't know whether either of these guys, like Celebrini had a better year last year, frankly, than Bedard did, but I don't know whether either one has a shot to make the team or not, but you get to be around all these Sidney Crosbys and Connor McDavids and make some connections and get comfortable being in the room with some of these people. That was one of the things that Dean Brown and I talked about with USA Hockey's orientation camp. Like, they invited some young guys. Luke Hughes is there. Lane Hutson, not one of them. And I don't think I would have had Lane Hutson on my roster for USA Hockey at the Olympics. I would have wanted him to come to camp and meet some of these people, right, and have that experience and be around it, and they chose not to do that. I was glad to see that Hockey Canada did bring in some of these young guys, whether they're a long shot to make the team or not. These are clearly guys that come 2030, 2034 are going to be key pieces. Let them be around some of your key guys and get to know what it feels like.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really happy that Connor Bedard got that because it's just something that I feel like would be perfect. And, the Four Nations happened. And look, I know, like I said, Connor Bedard didn't have the greatest year last year, but unless he's absolutely stinking it up and he's he's injured, I don't understand how he's not here. When it comes to snubs and people who should be there, look, this is like you said, how many skaters are here? There's so many forwards, 40 something plus. I'm not going to be super worried about guys that didn't get invited because I know a lot of these guys aren't even going to make the team anyways, but seeing guys like Tom Wilson getting the invite, to try and earn that spot, right? Everybody talked Four Nations. Why isn't he on this roster?
Yeah.
Why isn't he on this roster? So I'm happy to see him here.
Well, let's stay on him for a second. Sure. I know you got other names there, but I felt like that was the moment for him. Now, he had a tough season injury-wise, leading up to it and to stay on their radar. But that was an NHL tournament with NHL refs on NHL rinks in an NHL setting, essentially. And I thought if Tom Wilson was going to get the opportunity to do something, that would have been it. We are now going to an Olympics with a lot of IIHF referees, and Tom Wilson would scare me, right? Similar to what we talk about, or used to talk about anyway, with the World Juniors. If the hit along the boards is too loud, those refs will call it, right? It doesn't have to be dirty. It just has to make a lot of noise and be whoo. And, the Swiss ref is going to call you on a penalty. I wonder if a guy like Tom Wilson, and look, anybody's going to get it, and whether they were invited to this camp or not, that doesn't rule you out. If you weren't at this camp, you could still make the Olympic team. Whoever has the best start come, I think, late December, they're going to name these teams, will be there. I think Tom Wilson was more likely to make the Four Nations team than an Olympic team, just based on who's hosting it and who's going to officiate it. But I'm happy to see him at least at the camp. Do you think, what does the start of the season have to look like for him? To be seriously on Canada's radar, to go and play at an Olympics with a lot of IIHF officiating?
I think he just has to do what he normally does. And the biggest thing is discipline. You bring up the biggest point of these refs and what we're used to seeing and what they call. You're right. The one problem Tom Wilson always has is himself. He puts himself into bad penalties and stupid penalties, or he'll take something a bit too far to try and set the tone, whatever. And look, I'm happy he got the invite because it's just something where if he earns his way onto it,
sure.
Look, this guy shows he's a big body. Look, the one thing too, you look at the forwards, there's not a lot of guys that are very big on this roster. Quentin Byfield got the invite. I'm not sure if he's going to make the Olympic team, but he's 6'5". Tom Wilson's also in that area of 6'4". After that, it's, for Hagee Hagee at 6'2", Scheifele, and Stone at 6'3". Like, this isn't a very big roster.
No, you end up using guys like Travis Konechny, who's very physical, but he's not that big. And by late in the tournament, they didn't trust him a whole lot, even at the Four Nations, right? Like, it's.
So we get into these spots where, like, look, I'm okay with Tom Wilson going. I'm happy he's there.
Yeah.
Like you said, like, you don't, just because you're not, that's why I don't care about the snubs thing, because just because you're not there doesn't mean you won't have a chance to make the Olympic roster. We've seen it in the past. We know it's possible. So I'm just happy Olympic hockey is back. It's so friggin' awesome, man. Like, I'm so happy and ready for this one-on-one, and Four Nations was such a perfect setup. But yeah, like, look, for Tom Wilson, he just needs to play his game, score goals, do what he can do, but he just needs to show that he can be disciplined. Like, he, whether, I understand the odd fight here and there, but
sure,
it's taking those stupid penalties where it's either a dirty, cheap shot, or if it's just, bad penalties, taking too many unnecessary penalties. If he's a guy that can, just play the way he normally does, I don't see how he's not a discussion to be a guy that could be an extra forward on a fourth line, and a guy you could throw out there for an extra shift just to, make defense on the other side, just feel his presence, like, to finish his check. Like you said, you don't want to have it too crazy hits and whatnot in this, but physicality is absolutely a huge part of that game too. And I think
his age is a thing. Like, we'll see. Like, if we get to the point at the end of December where they're naming the team and he has, I don't know, 11, 12 goals, let's talk, right? Like, let's see what he looks.
Yeah.
If he's got 3 goals and he kind of looks washed a little bit, then we're probably not even having the conversation, right? But he deserves to be at the camp. One of the things, like, if we could make it local for a minute, we talked about the reaction that Montreal has had to Lane Hutson not being invited. And again, I don't want to paint Habs fans in the wrong. Well, actually, I'd love to paint them poorly here if I could. But to be fair, most of them have been fairly reasonable in saying, I don't think Lane Hutson deserves to make the Olympic team in his second year, ahead of a Werenski, ahead of a Hughes, ahead of people who are going to be the guys who run that USA power play. And that's the job you would need Lane Hutson to do if you were bringing him. He's not a shutdown third pair defenseman. But why wouldn't you bring him to camp? And I thought that was a reasonable enough question from Habs fans. When we look here in Ottawa, I haven't seen much outrage at all over the idea that Thomas Chabot was not invited to camp. And yet there have been some pieces written in a few different publications about why maybe he should have got, again, not necessarily a spot on the team, but at least an invite to camp. When you look at Thomas Chabot, do you feel like it was unjustified that he wasn't at least given that invite? Or it kind of, do you feel like it sort of feels like they've got a pretty good handle on what their D is going to look like and he's not going to be a part of it?
Yeah, I think so in that sense. I think it's what you just said. Like, whether he was invited or not, again, you could have invited him, you could have not. I look at the roster of defense, and, the other player I wanted to bring up when he brought up names is local guy, Mackenzie Weegar, getting the invite. I'm really happy he got the invite. Barhaven kind of guy, really good dude. I really like the way he plays.
He was really emotional when they interviewed him before the camp, like, and what it meant to him just to get the invite to camp, just to be around these people, right? Like, he was emotional about that. It was good to see for that guy.
Yeah, I like that a lot, and I'm happy he did. And when I look at the decor, though, like, when you see the names, like, I just I look at Chabot, and I'd rather just about every defense that's on this roster pretty much right now over him. So it's it is what it is, and like you said, there hasn't been too much outrage. I think if Thomas Chabot starts the season again on a hot streak and he gets invited, then by all means, like, I'm okay with him making the team.
This is it.
If he's not here
being
right
on
now,
it, like, not being at camp doesn't mean you can't go. If he gets off to a killer start, he'll be in the picture when it comes selection time.
Yeah, and like I said, I like the decor already. Like, there's so many guys here that it's going to be a really, really hardcore to pick, especially when you have guys like Drew Doughty, where maybe he hasn't been himself the last few years, but does he make the roster just because he's a veteran guy that's won a gold before, and he has that experience, and he's a good guy to have around? So will he steal a spot from someone just based off of his resume versus his play?
Hockey Canada loves that guy, right? We think back to the Four Nations and the space they made for him. Like, if you're healthy, if you're back, if you can play a game or two, the spot will be there for you. And it was. It turned out he played, and they love him. The thing that stands out to me, and I don't want to rant and rave about it because I've done it before on this show. I don't like the term snub. Sometimes certain guys are just better than other guys. And that doesn't mean those guys were snubbed. It just means you weren't as good. I was surprised you were only bringing 3 goalies to camp. And they were the 3 goalies you took to the tournament last year. Sam Montembeault, Aiden Hill, and Jordan Binnington. And look, Binnington, Canada's goaltending was under a serious microscope going into the tournament, and I thought that was fair. We'll see what's going to happen here. And Binnington, I don't think you looked at the tournament as a whole and said, pillar to post, best goalie of the tournament. But in those moments in overtime, and what he made big saves that you needed him to make, Aiden Hill has sort of struggled a little lately. Sam Montembeault, as much as it pains me to say, is probably a little underappreciated. But at a camp like this, I was surprised you only bothered to bring the same 3 goalies. You can't find room in somebody's hotel for Logan Thompson to come out, and after the year he had in Washington, there are other Canadian goaltenders that I still feel like goaltending is a bit of a weak spot for Canada against some of the teams they're going to play at the Olympics. But I didn't see any real reason to limit the invite list to just the 3 that you had at the 4 Nations. Let Logan Thompson come and let some of these guys come and have that experience at camp to get to know some people in case, I don't even know, whoever gets out to the hottest start, that's the guy you want. That's in the situation that Canada's in right now, is whoever's hot right now, I want that guy on my Olympic team, because we don't have a clear-cut Swayman or, Ottinger or Hellebuck, whatever you think of that right now. I just thought it was odd that it was only 3 goalies that were invited.
Yeah, for me, it's true. I just think that when you look across the league, the best Canadian goalies are the 3 that are right there right now. I would say the goalies they invited, the same ones that have been there are there. I wouldn't be against Logan Thompson getting an invite as well, just to be there too. But the fact that he's not, I think they're just trying to say, was last year just luck, where he came out of nowhere? Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. I don't know if there's a reason.
Are you sure Aiden Hill's way better than Logan Thompson? To me, these are all.
I would just say he's a little bit more of a veteran guy, and that's where we always see these Olympic rosters. Like I said, we kind of always see them favor those guys that have been there and done things before. And I think Aiden Hill has been around the league. He's won a cup for Vegas, and like you said, I've never. I think you were actually pretty modest about it by saying it's a bit of a worry for the. I think the goaltending, like you said, Binnington showed up in the moments that mattered, which is the biggest factor. But Jordan Binnington being you calling him the number 1 goaltender in Canada is kind of
that's uncomfortable, man. Well, because he's a guy going into World Championships, right? Going into World Championships, everyone was like, I'd totally get it if Jordan Binnington just sat it out. I'm the guy. I went to Worlds last year for Canada, earned my spot, showed them I cared, got the number 1 job, and won you a 4 Nations. And then he goes to the World Championships this year, and I'm not blaming him, but they lose a quarterfinal to Denmark. You're like, that's fucking gross, man. And he's in net for it. Is he singularly to blame? Of course not. Canada needs to score 8, 10, 12 goals anytime they play Denmark. That has to happen, and they didn't. So it's not entirely on him, but he would have been better off to stay home and put his feet up on the couch and say, you already know I'm your guy, instead of being a part of that debacle in Copenhagen, man. I think I would have found room, if I'm bringing 44 people to camp anyway, to bring 1 or 2 more goalies in, just to get to know people. That's all. I don't know that any one guy was snubbed. I just don't know why you needed to limit it.
Is there anybody other than maybe Logan Thompson that you would really consider too, though? I'm just looking at Canadian goaltenders around the league, and it's like I said, those 3 there, I think are the best 3 in Canada, and I think Logan Thompson is a guy that could probably push for the 3rd spot, but I maybe want to see a bit more too. But again, if he was invited, I'd be okay with it, and I think he should be there too. Right. I agree with you on that aspect of it, but when you're looking around the league, I'm not looking at any other goaltenders.
Let's look at the dynamite stick, Stuart Skinner.
Sure.
he's been a guy who has taken his team, at least, with a little help sometimes, to the Stanley Cup final twice in a row. That's a guy. Oh, okay, you're not feeling that. You're not feeling it at all. Not interested.
If anything, he's shown like that. He's the guy. He's maybe the reason they have not come away with a cup.
What about Darcy Kemper? Had a pretty good bounce back year last year in LA.
Yeah,
he's won a cup,
and he's a big guy.
You can't bring him to camp. Like we're not deciding who's making the team right now, but just who's on our radar for the tournament. I don't know, man. I thought Darcy
Kemper's
Kemper.
a guy too. I like that idea. Again, I think him and Logan Thompson, are the guys that you would like. Skinner, not a chance.
Okay.
But the other two, I could see, and I'd be okay
Pickard
with.
Canadian? Because if we're bringing Skinner, we got to bring Pickard.
I was going to say they're coming
run
together.
A tandem.
McDavid's on the saying, no, I don't think so. Please not. But no, I think that the guys that are there are fine. If anybody else makes the team, that'd be very cool, and I think that's the door's still open for someone.
Sure.
But
yes.
I'm okay with this. But and Kemper, like you said, he hasn't had the last, best last couple of years, but still had a better year this year, and he's a big goaltender too. So I wouldn't have hated him being there. So I look at this as it is what it is, and I'm just happy that some of the young guys are there, some of the veterans are there. It's a big roster.
Yeah, like you said, it's Byfield, it's Celebrini, and it's Bedard, and look. I'm not certain that any of those three will be on the team, but I'm glad they're there now, getting to spend time with Nathan McKinnon, right? And spend time with Connor McDavid and this group, and just be around it. And they're not scheduled to be on ice. We'll see. That's happened before, where everyone just happened to throw their skates in their bag before they headed out there. We'll see. But it's meant to be an off. Remember, I think we saw the Mike Babcock ball hockey. This is what our power play might look like. This is going into 2010. So we'll see. Look, as you and I sit here on Wednesday afternoon and record this, the Jays are coming off a pretty brutal bullpen performance against the Minnesota Twins on the same night that the Red Sox kind of orchestrated a nice little piece of business. And they've been hanging tough, man. You were one of the people I wanted to specifically ask about this because you're kind of a douche. You're not a Jays fan. You're a Red Sox guy. And they're hanging around. And for the longest time, it felt like the Jays had passed the Yankees, had a couple of huge performances against them in a few different series. And once those guys are buried, that's the AL East. But the Red Sox have not faded. And I think a lot of people... and I was certainly one of them that said once they traded away Rafael Devers, that was sort of an acknowledgement that the future is still bright, but this year is probably a lost cause. And that has not turned out to be the case at all. The Red Sox are hanging tough. I believe as we sit here and record this right now, they're actually ahead of the Yankees as far as being, the next team behind the Jays. There is one more series between these two teams. I know you're a bit of a Red Sox guy, man. Why didn't it fall apart when they traded away Rafael Devers, or are you as surprised as the rest of us that they're here right now and making a push?
Yeah, I just think, and I've only watched a few games, and more recently, I've been into it, and especially watching them just absolutely take the Yankees to town over the weekend. Was a very big game it was a big series for them because now it puts them in front of them, like you said. But I just think this team is littered with some talent right now, and they Roman Anthony's came in, and man, the guy has been electric, right? And Jaron Duran is showing he's kind of getting it together. He had a bit of a slower start, but Garrett Crochet, they traded for him in the offseason, and he was awesome. Giolito, watching the game against the Orioles, had a great 8 innings scoreless, and just watching the Orioles, they just were blowing it late in the game anyways. They are a dumpster fire right now, and I think that's just being nice about it, to be frank. But honestly, the Red Sox just have a team that's just littered with some really young exciting guys right now,
great young pieces, but I'm just surprised they're all here now, right? Like I thought this might take a little longer, and they're hanging tough.
And I'm a Red Sox fan. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but it's something we've seen from them a few times when they've gone to the World Series, right? Where these young guys aren't afraid to be put into, whether it be a Xander Bogaerts or Rafael Devers way back in the day. You go back and they've had that ability to put guys in there, and I think that we're starting to see some of that. And again, pitching, like I said, Crochet has been showing that he's an absolute ace. Being able to have him, and again, Giolito showing up last night, that was big time for them. And the Red Sox are in a spot right now. Like, look, they're sitting right there and they're battling, and sure enough, it's going to come down to the wire. Like you said, there's still lots going on here. Yeah. But I really like the fact that the Red Sox are putting themselves in a spot to be in a playoff spot. So it's good to see that.
Is it already a success? If they ended up missing now, would you say that after trading away Devers and giving some of these young guys some runway here to come out and learn, is that enough? Or the fact that they're in it now and they're ahead of the Yankees, and look, the Yankees are beat up, they're hurt, and we'll see how that's all going to play out. It's an interesting battle anytime the Yankees and the Red Sox are neck and neck coming down the stretch. Is this already a win of a season for the Red Sox? Or now that they're ahead of the Yankees coming down the stretch, is it like, no, fuck that, we got to get in, and it won't be accepted unless the Red Sox make the playoffs?
Yeah, I think they need to make the playoffs. They've just put on such a great run, and look, like guys like Trevor Story, who's been injured so much of his career, him being hot, that's good, right? Like he's right up there. Abreu's been very good for this team. Bregman has came in, and like you said, everyone was kind of surprised, but it sounds like Devers was all about money and more about himself than he was kind of a team that way, thing.
Yeah,
and he hasn't been as great since he's left Boston either. Nope. So when I look at the whole situation, it's obviously affected one guy and it's affected another team. So when you look at the Red Sox, being hot since they've traded him and him not so great, I look at the situation as maybe the organization got it right and all the fans got it wrong. Look, I love Rafa Devers. Yeah, I love Rafa Devers, but it sounded like he, as soon as they brought in Bregman, it sounded like he was like, you know what, I'm not playing first. Like, I'm not doing this. I'm not he already didn't have the attitude of wanting to kind of add a better player to the roster.
I'll be honest with you, man. Like, I looked at that and I went, guy's kind of a douche. And yet, I'm your third baseman. Like, I kind of get it. And yet he gave no indication that I'm going to be a team guy about this. It was, nope. Like, if that's your plan, you better make a new plan because I'm out of here. Like, there's sort of this, I sort of see your point, and yet you couldn't have been more of a dick about it, right? Like,
yeah. No, and like I said, the Red Sox are in a spot now where, like I said, they have that excitement. Bringing up Roman Anthony seems to just spark this team and get them going. And they've had some guys step up. Again, Giolito having a sub 3.50 ERA is awesome, and Crochet,
it's incredible, man.
It's good to see that.
Garrett Crochet, we didn't know what was left in the tank for that guy, and all of a sudden, like you said, he's an ace again. He's just out of nowhere. So
and you look at guys like Walker Buehler that hasn't, or Steven Matz, that like guys that have been able to show that they can, be old.
Matz, I remember that guy.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like, and to have these kind of arms that can help you out. And like I said, when you look at some of the veterans that are on the team, like a Trevor Story and how good of a year he's having, like that's something where it's like, okay, good. Like, can they keep it healthy? Can they keep it going? I think they can. I think they've shown the Yankees are right now in a kind of a whole slide, and they have not been very good the last few months. So I look at that kind of spot right behind the Jays is one for the taking. And I think the Boston Red Sox, if they can keep it up, like I said, I haven't watched all of the early season, why things were bad, what's so good recently, but in the last couple of games I've watched, and, it's nice to watch some baseball because I have a feeling after this weekend, I'm probably not going to watch much baseball other than Red Sox and Jays games because college football starts. Here we go, Notre Dame. You know what? In a week and a half, we got NFL football. Like, we're ready to go. It's football season is back. And then, you know what? We're in the spot too. Like you said earlier, summer's kind of gone. People get back to work. Well, NHL players usually get back to work mid-September.
Right. Yep. Captain skates are coming. Look, let's just hit this quickly. I'm curious. I didn't have this on the agenda. Arch Manning.
Sure.
Do you think, man, when you look at that guy and some of the teams that are going to be bad this year, would he be best? And we know the Manning family is not above saying, yeah, fuck that, I'm not going there, right? Ask the Chargers if the Mannings are shy about saying we're not going to play for you. I'm curious, based on who finishes last this year, would Arch Manning be okay ending up with the Giants? Could be terrible. The Saints could be terrible. I guess I don't know what you think about the Colts. Would there be too much pressure on that guy going into a market that has already had a very successful Manning where he would wave that off? Or is it more, I'd be prepared to do that, but I'm not going to some of these shitbirds that might actually be terrible forever. Like if the Browns were to finish and get the first overall pick, would they just say, go fuck yourself? Like, do you think there's a chance he would like to go and follow up in New Orleans or Indianapolis or New York with the Giants? Or would that be too much and he would rather have a clean start, in your opinion?
Yeah. Oh, Arch Manning is going to be the biggest and most interesting part of this college football season, because already leading up to it, I think you had Arch Manning Sr. Saying he's going to go back to college next year.
Yep.
And then
Which
he
is
said,
leverage, right? We'll see who finishes with the first overall pick
and
whether I want to go there.
And he said, I don't know why he's saying that. I haven't made any decisions yet.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot that goes into it, but I look to see how good is he? First off, we've seen flashes of him, but we want to see him fully start. Like, look, Texas.
He's a name, right? That's part of why he's getting the attention. We'll see if you're that good. You have that name. Are you that good?
Well, and that's going to be the biggest thing. And for Texas, they're a team that has big expectations this year. They have a loaded roster, and he's the guy. Like, he is the guy now. Quinn Ewers is gone, so he is the guy. So curious to see that. As for the other teams where he goes to, look, whether it is the Saints or that's a whole different situation, because they drafted a quarterback in the second round, Tyler Shough, this year.
Right, yeah.
That they're expecting to kind of be the future, that they're really high on. Spencer Rattler is the starter in New Orleans. They just announced that earlier this week, so we'll see what that is. But when I look at the Giants, well, they drafted a quarterback in the first round, Jackson Dart, this year. So I don't see, and if he doesn't even declare next year, it's kind of a moot point. This is a year, though, for a lot of quarterback prospects that people are high on, that are to watch. Arch Manning being one of them. Whether he declares or not is going to be such a big thing. The
Mannings, they always go back, right? They always stay. And there's something about
developing and learning.
Is that it, right? Is that the thing that says, I'm going to stay longer? And look, it's worked out. The Mannings have Super Bowl rings to show, like, hang back a little longer. And look, if the perfect opportunity presents itself this year, maybe you go. But otherwise, you've set yourself up to say, this is the way the Mannings do it. We will play that one last year and then go, and that's how you develop a Super Bowl winning quarterback. It's really interesting, man.
Well, and I like that idea of it too, and that's where everybody's talking about is, look, both Peyton, he came in and he had a terrible first rookie year with crazy interceptions and wasn't the greatest, and sure enough developed into it. And Eli Manning, even throughout his whole career, wasn't, a world beater, but, came clutch in big moments against the Patriots. So,
that's all I cared about.
Yeah, having two guys know and players, directly involved in there to help you out is such a big advantage for him in general. So, I think that he'll realize what's appropriate for him. And look, you know what? The one thing, credit to him, the one thing we see in college football now is every other player and their brother and their sister enters the transfer portal when they're not happy with the situation. It's crazy. It's frustrating. It's annoying. I love that he has stayed at Texas for the last couple seasons as a backup. Look, he was making more money from NIL deals at Texas than Brock Purdy was, starting in a Super Bowl 2 years ago. Yeah. It's crazy. And he wasn't even starting in college football, but his name, like you said, brought him a big deal of money. So there's a lot that goes into all these things. And for me, for Arch Manning and even just college football in general, we're so quick to see teams move off of, first round picks, players, guys. You look a couple years ago, it's probably quite a few now, but when Josh Rosen was drafted in the first round, 10th overall by the Cardinals, the following year, Cardinals got the first overall pick. They traded away Sam Rosen or Josh Rosen, and then they went out and they drafted Kyler Murray instead, number one overall. Like, teams are so quick to move off quarterbacks if it's not working out and it's not appropriate, or it's a new coaching regime, new GM. There's so much, but we also just see quarterbacks so often just get passed over, get thrown off to the side. You know what? They're not ready. Look at Anthony Richardson in the Colts right now and how he's struggling, and Daniel Jones beat him out. Look at Daniel Jones, how things didn't work out for him with the Giants. So there's just a lot that can go into it, and I think it's a big thing to see these guys, get developed properly and in college, and that way they're ready to get to the NFL, and it doesn't ruin their career when they get put into bad situations like the Giants putting Daniel Jones in a terrible one, like the Colts putting a guy like Anthony Richardson, who only had 1 year starting as a quarterback for Florida before they drafted him in the top 5. Man, it's just bad decisions like that can really set your roster and your team back in the NFL. So for Arch Manning, like you said, it's about going to the right spot, but also making sure he's ready in his career. He has a lot to live up to, and I'm sure he doesn't want to be a Manning bust. No. So, whether he's appropriate, ready, has a great season, leads Texas to the national championship, that's big. Like, it's all going to come down to this year, and there's so many quarterbacks this year that to watch that are going to be exciting, and I think that, he's first and foremost a guy to watch.
Yeah, I'm not a college football guy at all, but as someone who through his entire career was a huge Peyton Manning fan, like I've never, you know this about me, I'm not a huge NFL guy. I follow the big game each week, like I'll keep an eye on things, and before that it was just I followed Peyton Manning from Indianapolis to Denver and kept it on. This will be a story that I keep an eye on throughout the season. And one of the biggest stories in combat sports history dates back 8 years ago this week. Connor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather in a boxing spectacle. And to lay the cards on the table here for the good listener, Bunda is far more informed and plugged in than I am around the combat sports world. But at the time, you and I had not yet connected. You weren't a regular on the show yet. And I'll be honest with you, man. This thing got my attention. And I knew that Floyd was, without question, the better boxer, right? And I was a UFC fan. But I liked Connor. I liked the brashness. I liked the stupid press conference tours that looked like a WWE promo session before the Royal Rumble or something. And Connor's walking around with the dollar signs on his suits and things like that.
Oh, yeah, fuck you, I think, put it on his suit.
Yeah. And, I have time for that sort of nonsense. And when we got to the event, I didn't, well, as I pointed out, Bunda, you and I didn't really know you yet, so you hadn't hooked me up with a sweet link. I paid the money for it to watch the show, had people over to check the thing out. I'm curious, when you look back 8 years to it, and they're two separate conversations, so I will ask you in a moment what that fight did to Connor afterwards, right? And what it's meant for him moving forward. But going into it, Connor McGregor, one of the biggest names, knows how to sell a fight, a great promoter. Floyd Mayweather obviously knows how to sell a fight, legitimately one of the best boxers of all time. When this thing was announced, were you into it? And in two different ways, I want to split this for you. Were you into it as, I get it, it's a spectacle, I'll watch this, I get why it's interesting to people, and in that separate way that, I don't know, maybe Connor's got a shot. Maybe I can talk myself into it. What was your what was your, your take when we were heading into Mayweather versus McGregor?
Yeah, and that time was perfect for Connor McGregor, right? He was that guy, and I think that's where everybody saw it come from. Was that it was he was the double champ. He was just an all-star. He was the ultimate promoter. He was the
UFC had to offer.
Yeah, but it wasn't even had to offer. He's made him he was the last big superstar name. That came John Jones. I feel already was at that time, but he was the last big name. I feel as a superstar UFC guy that has put UFC in that spot. You go from him and Ronda Rousey in the mid 2000s,
yeah,
and the classics throughout the 2000s, early 2000s, but. I look at Conor McGregor as that he was at his height. He was the peak Conor at that time, and he was the one thing you brought up there was that both him and Floyd were the ultimate promoters of their sport.
Yes.
Both of them can promote the fight in the best in their sports almost of all time. Connor, it's hard to argue that there's anybody that was better at promoting themselves and their fights than him. Like, he is that guy, and I think that's what he did. And honestly, when you go back to the fight in general, I was like, okay, like, you know what? Connor's the younger guy. He's got that heat. He knocked out Aldo so quickly. He's got some fast hands.
Maybe
you know what? This guy
Floyd's
can come
taking
in.
him lightly. Like, maybe we could see. Yeah,
maybe he's slow and he can't handle this. Like, all this stuff. I think I was in that spot of like, okay, I'm down, because at the time I was huge Connor McGregor. Like, I loved Connor McGregor when he came in. He was that underdog fighter that kind of came from nowhere, that has really earned everything he got. And early Connor McGregor was like actually so inspiring and such a great guy to watch. And ultimately, what this fight did to them, because we saw after they, like you said, the fight promotions and everything like that. That was the spectacle. It was so much more than the fight itself. I believe like Floyd Mayweather bet on himself to win in a certain round, and that's when he tried the hardest. And it was like Connor got maybe one or two good shots in on him, but never really stood a chance.
Early on, it's sort of like Floyd sort of hung around, but by the end, you could tell
he was toying with him.
Yeah, Floyd's playing with his dinner here, right?
Like, and he knew what he was doing, and I think that's the thing.
Look, to be fair to anyone out there who's listening as an MMA fan, which you and I both are, if it went the other way, if Floyd got in the octagon Connor would have destroyed him. But that's not what this was. You signed up for a boxing match, and you were out of your league, right? And
that's never what it is, right? And I think that's the unfortunate part. Is it's
James
always
Toney
the UFC
would say.
It's always the UFC going the opposite way.
Yeah,
it's always them going to boxing because they believe that they can hang with boxers, and we always see that it's usually the boxer that prevails, the more experienced person. And look,
well, you
like
and I talked up. We both love Francis Ngannou. When it came nut cutting time, he couldn't hang.
No. And I mean, his first fight against Tyson Fury was obviously one where I think you could just see Tyson Fury wasn't taking him
he clearly
as
showed up, didn't
because
care.
He showed. I thought that there was
Anthony
a very good
Joshua
chance.
said, "Fuck off," right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not playing this, right?
Well, and that's the thing, right? It goes to show. So I don't know. And I look back at that, and it basically ruined Connor's career. He made a crap ton of money. The UFC made crap. Like the thing was, it was Connor and Dana. It wasn't just Connor. It was Connor and Dana. They were together and they were hanging out, and it was pretty awesome to see how big the UFC got and how much it helped them. And I think that was such a big thing. But after that, like Khabib Nurmagomedov choked him out, and it was basically over for Connor.
Well, Connor hasn't done shit. All
he did was beat Cowboy with a couple of shoulder bumps to the nose, and Cowboy at that time had been pretty much done.
Breaks his own leg on trying to kick on Dustin Poirier. He's been a mess ever since. And there's an old expression, and I can't remember off the top of my head where it comes from. A better podcast host would have done the research. But it said, it's tough to get out of bed at 5 a.m. to go for a run when you're sleeping in silk sheets.
Well, and that's the thing.
And so once Conor McGregor has made his million, I lost the fight to Floyd Mayweather, but I made millions off of it. It's hard to talk him into coming back and trying to, be what he once was in the UFC. And he has never, since then, been that again in the UFC. He's never, he's still been the biggest name around MMA at times, but he's never been the best again in MMA.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, right? We've seen a guy that's also just taken his life, his decisions outside the octagon, like whether it's his buying a yacht, it's him, with sexual assault cases, drugs, HGH, there's about a million
Michael
rumors.
Chandler.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into what he's been doing, and but his name has still been out there. It's been movies. This is the guy. He's always said he wants to come back. And he's making money.
That's
and he's
the White House. I'll come back for that one. Yeah, will you?
Well, I don't know. I'm still skeptical about that whole thing going down in general. We'll wait and see how it goes. Everybody keeps saying it's happening, but for me, Connor is just like he's not been the same guy. Like you said, he's changed. Whether it's just to him in general, but he's not been the same guy, and he'll still sell a fight on his name.
A name.
But I think that's the problem is that, people are kind of getting over him now. And it's because he's a guy that's, sexual assault cases, can't make, he can't even stay in a camp without, dropping out of it right now. He's honestly more of a letdown. And I've been extremely frustrated with seeing a guy that was once such an inspiration to be just an absolute clown these days, slapping guys in a bar, like doing all this kind of you know what I mean? He's just a guy now that just goes out there and he's
throwing away Bunda his legal problems. When you look at him, is it as simple? Is it as easy to draw a line to the Mayweather fight? He made his millions, and
Yeah.
Ever since then, he hasn't been motivated enough. Like, is that oversimplifying it? Is that too much of a?
It's hard to argue against it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. And for me, like I said, it's one thing to kind of come back like he did, but it's also one thing to come back and get humbled the way he has in the last few fights. Like, he went from being on top of the world to falling right on his face and even below the ground. Like, it's been bad for him. There hasn't been a lot of positivity in his life, but I do believe that if he ever wanted to commit back to UFC, and we see these stupid movies all the time where that fighter that hits rock bottom and his wife leaves him, and kid won't talk to him like Rocky or whatever, and he's like some 40 something year old guy that makes him come back to get his life clean.
Happy Gilmore too.
Yeah, like there's about 1 million of these sports movies we've seen over the years. Look, can Connor McGregor ever come back? I'm gonna say I highly doubt it. Will he? I'd love to see him try. The one thing we've always seen is he's not in trouble when he's fighting. Like, he's a guy that's shown when he's dedicated and wants to fight and train.
Yeah.
Is he afraid to keep going into the octagon against some of these killers now and realize he's not the same guy that was fighting every other month because he was so energized and ready to go and he was the face of the UFC?
It's all about your expectations, right? Can Connor McGregor still sell a fight? Can you put him in the right matchup on the grounds of the White House if you have to? Like, what? Can you sell a fight with that name still? I think you probably can one more time. Can you bet on him to win a fight against one of the top 3 to 5 contenders in... I can't imagine he's still going to be a lightweight, like at middleweight or what.
Yeah.
No, he's going to get his ass beat. Like,
I think he was supposed to fight Chandler at welterweight. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like it was weird. Like these guys are in a weird spot.
He's walking around though now.
Big dog, yeah.
Yeah. So can you sell a fight with that name attached to it? Yeah. Can you expect him to regain what he once was as a contender? Probably not, right? Like he's...
Well, it's commitment, right? Like I'll believe it when I see Connor McGregor in there and he's training and he's fighting and he's committed to actually staying in the octagon. So many times we've seen him training, but then I think it was his last one with Chandler where he was out at the bar with his wife, like making out and just goofing around, dancing and drinking. It's like, dude, Connor would never do that in his normal camps. No. Like he would not. No. And it's just that's the guy. Like I said, I want to see how committed he is to ever being in the octagon before I believe him. But it was a fight that everybody was watching, everybody was into. I bought it too. I didn't even have links back then.
Okay,
I paid for it too back then, and I remember watching with my old roommate and just being like, this is interesting. And then after seeing them pose and be friends and everything was different, it's like, they both made a lot of money off this, and everybody got duped. So
a little bit, it sort of felt that way, right? A lot like Floyd Mayweather versus the Big Show at WrestleMania 26 or whatever it was. I'm pretty sure this was premeditated.
Didn't he break his nose, though?
Yes, he did. And Big Show told him, like, you go ahead, punch me as hard as you can, but then run the fuck away because I won't be able to control my anger in that moment. So, Bunda, look, man, we've talked about this a couple different times, and we'll see how September shakes loose. But these cottage to cottage pods, man, have helped make the summer go by. Certainly for me, kept contributing. It's my enablers. It's you, it's Strides, it's Kevin Mickey, man, who have allowed... And look, we've had guests, obviously, along the way, but in terms of our regulars who have allowed me to slack-ass my way through the summer, appreciate everything you do, man. And look, cottage to cottage, this is a new wrinkle that will continue for summers to come. We used to try and squeeze things in. I'll be in town, you'll be in town, like we can get in studio, or you'd be at home, but I'd be at the lake. And even the fact that we can both now enjoy the view out to the water while we do these is a nice new wrinkle, man. I appreciate everything you've done this summer, buddy. I appreciate you, man.
Hey, no worries. I'm always down. I'm happy we were finally able to make something like this happen.
Fuck yeah.
Cottage to cottage, lake to lake. I love that. I'm on my back porch looking at the lake now. Just finished my Mike's Halfer lemonade lager. Also wanted to just bring up before we throw it away, seeing Hamzat Shemaev finally win the championship, but absolutely just dominate DDP. I think that this guy, the UFC, again, I've said for about a year and so, the UFC is in a struggle for superstar athletes and face of the sport athletes right now. O'Malley not having the title. Like, there's some guys that are there. Paddy Pimblett's another name right now. Ali Tapuria is kind of making his name for it right now.
And we should point out, right, for people who aren't hardcore MMA fans, Khamzat Chimaev has been about as dominant as anybody on his rise, but the complaint has been he's not interesting, right? And so he took Jirkus Duplessis apart. DDP won the championship from him, but it wasn't a fun watch. Like, it wasn't an entertaining watch. He was just so much better that I just grab that guy, I wrestle him to the ground, I push him down, and I just hold him there. And if he's not going to fight to get out, I'm not going to let him up. And so it's a dull fight to watch, but it's dull because one guy is so much more dominant than the other. And this is one of those conversations, Bunda, you know as well as anybody, that MMA has had to deal with for a while. It's like, well, do we force them back to their feet just because one guy's so much better than the other? Entertainment value versus competitiveness. Yeah, like it's tough, man.
It is. And the one thing Chimaev did was, you know what, he'd take him down, but he would still punch, so you can't really make him get up. Like, he was wrestling him to the ground and just beating him up. Like, that was the thing. He ragdolled DDP around the octagon all night, and I think that was the one thing. But, you know, and we don't need to get too into it, but no, I was happy to see him win the championship. Now it's going to be the next couple of fights to see who he fights next, and I think the big thing is you know, he's been undefeated, but he's been so dominating in every fight he's been in. So I think that it's for him to kind of have that title right now. Like I said, he has the potential to be a superstar for the UFC. So happy to see that, and I think we'll see a few more in the next couple months here.
When he was born to be a superstar, right? Like, we think back to 2020, and they were doing we're going to do the Fight Island thing and the empty building fight. I think he fought 3 times in 2 months or something like that. And we were all like, look at this fucking guy, Khamzat Chimaev.
Yeah.
And then he got COVID, and it fucked him up for a long time. Like, his lung capacity was not good. And then he comes back. We have that weird card where 3 different fights get changed. Kevin Holland, I think, is part of it. Diaz is part of it. Like, everybody's like just shuffling opponents to make it work because Chimaev missed weight by so much. It's taken a while for him to get here because he was trying to fight at 3 different weight classes, but he is here now, and he is the champ. And yeah, we're going to have some conversations here moving forward about what dominance looks like in the UFC and versus entertainment, right? And it's a tough... It's like the 95 Devils. Like, if you're not an MMA fan, that's what we're talking about here. Khamzat Chimaev took that guy down and just held him there and pounded on him enough to run it out. Yeah. Well, that's Bobby Holik, and it's Scott Stevens, and it's just choking your team out for 60 minutes. And
I thought it was a little bit more exciting than that. I think you're being a little hard on Khamzat Chimaev. I was very impressed to see how well he ragdolled one of the top wrestlers in the division and the current champion. And for him, it's good to see dominant guys like that. And just another shout out too, watching Dana White Contender Series last night, and a guy reminds everybody kind of like a Khamzat Chimaev, but Turkey has a fighter that's undefeated. He just earned himself a UFC contract last night. Abdul Rahman Yakayev, like, this guy is serious. He is undefeated, but man, he went into his fight and he just attacked the guy, dummied him, knocked out in 30 seconds. It was just, this guy likes to hurt people. He has his name to be watched in the next little while here. He just earned a UFC contract. He went up to Dana. I think he said he wants to be on the Brazil card, but he's a guy too that just kind of has that ability of, I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I'm going to beat you up. And I think that it was very entertaining to watch the Dana White Contender Series and see a young guy kind of get his chance. But yeah, Abdul Rahman Yakayev, this guy, serious.
Okay, well, that's a name to keep an eye on. And this is why we have you on, Bunda. You've always got a name or two that I have no idea about. So we'll wrap this one up here. Bunda's got things to do. He's still on vacation. I'm in my last couple of days here.
We're both at the cottage. We got both things to do, right?
Well, I don't have much to do. I got much to drink before I head back. That's maybe the difference.
Something to do.
As I said, man, one of my enablers. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you always doing this. And look, we've still got a couple things waiting for you here in studio when you get back, both from me and obviously our friend Angela Thompson from Lake of Bays has left a couple things from you here sometime in September. We'll do this up right back in studio, man.
Yes, let's do it. 65 days until Halloween, Matt, so we got to get one in.
I forgot. You're probably already into horror movie mode, so... That's where we'll wrap this one up. Thank you all so much for listening. As I mentioned, Dean Brown was here on Monday talking all things Sens. Mike Comito, what the fuck happened to the Toronto Maple Leafs Core 4 era? That was last Thursday. All kinds of great stuff up on the feed right now at tallcanaudio.com or wherever you're hearing us right now. For Steve Bunda, my name is Matt Robinson. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.